The sun hung low, casting a red haze over the plateau. The earth was dry and cracked, swallowing sound and reflecting heat like a mirror. The sniper unit lay prone along the ridge, their gear scattered across the dusty stone. Through their scopes, they scanned the valley below, where a convoy of enemy vehicles had halted near a broken road. At the center stood the convoy leader, a man whose decisions had already cost hundreds of lives. He was the target. The problem wasn't finding him. It was the distance. The commander, hardened by 20 years in the field, lowered his binoculars slowly, jaw clenched. 3,560 meters, he muttered under his breath, the words heavy like a verdict. He shook his head. No one hits that. Not from here. Not with what we've got. The others didn't argue. Everyone knew the truth. The longest confirmed shots in history were whispered about like legends, feats reserved for the rarest shooters under the rarest conditions. This was beyond even that. The wind cut across the valley unpredictably. Heat shimmered, bending light, and the convoy leader moved between vehicles, giving orders. Hitting him at that distance was like threading a needle across a football field while the field was on fire. The unit adjusted their scopes, some calculating ranges, others shaking their heads. It can't be done, one spotter muttered. Another ran quick ballistics in his notebook, scratching numbers before slamming it shut. We'd need perfect wind, perfect rifle, perfect everything, his voice trailed off. The commander exhaled sharply, rubbing the dust from his face. His men looked to him for answers, but he had none. Attempting the shot would waste ammo and reveal their position. Doing nothing would let the convoy leader escape, continuing to orchestrate chaos. Both choices weighed like iron in his chest. Then she spoke. Silent until now, lying just apart from the group, adjusting her rifle with deliberate precision. Her fingers traced the scope dials like a pianist feeling the keys. Her face was unreadable, calm in a way that unsettled the others. She turned her head slightly, voice even and quiet. Give me one bullet. The words cut through the tension. The commander blinked, as if he hadn't heard right. The others shifted uneasily. You don't understand, he said, shaking his head. This isn't training. That's over 2 miles. No one on Earth. I can, she interrupted. Her tone wasn't arrogance or desperation. It was fact, as if she had already solved the impossible in her head. Her eyes returned to the scope, scanning the valley with almost inhuman precision. The silence that followed felt heavier than the desert air. The commander studied her, the youngest, least experienced in years, yet somehow the most composed. He wanted to dismiss her claim, but there was something in her eyes that stopped him cold. Steady. Unshakable. Around them, wind rattled loose stones across the ridge. The convoy below began to move. The commander clenched his jaw. One bullet, he muttered, unsure if he was agreeing or surrendering. He reached into his pouch, placed a single round in her hand. She nodded once, as if waiting for that moment all along. The ridge went silent. The world narrowed to a rifle, a scope, and a single line of sight stretched across 3.5 kilometers of shifting air. She lay flat against the ridge, coarse stone pressing into her chest, cheek resting against the rifle stock. The unit's chatter faded into nothing. Only her steady breathing and the faint rush of wind remained. Her hands moved with ritual precision. She opened the chamber, checked the barrel, traced the steel. No dust, no grit. She slid the round into the chamber, locked it with a satisfying click. It wasn't just ammunition, it was one fragile chance to bend the impossible into reality. The commander knelt a few feet away, binoculars glued to his eyes. His expression was a storm of doubt and hope. Spotters whispered about wind vectors and bullet drop but dared not interrupt her focus. She wasn't calculating aloud. Every adjustment lived in her head, unfolding with eerie calm. Elevation first, turret clicks into position. The bullet would fall meters over that distance. Then windage, reading mirage lines like a language only she could understand. The convoy leader appeared small, a dark figure against pale dust. He paced, shouting orders, unaware that a woman watched with hawk-like patience. She inhaled, chest rising and falling slowly. Her finger brushed the trigger, resting like a promise. Her heart rate slowed, each beat syncing with the scope's tiny movements. At this range, time itself mattered. 10 seconds for the bullet to reach him, a heartbeat stretched into eternity. She waited, calm, focused. The commander whispered, "Wait for him to stop moving." She ignored him. The leader lifted his arm to signal a man, and his body stilled, framed in profile. That was it. She exhaled, world shrinking to the crosshair resting on a figure 3.56 kilometers away. The rifle cracked, recoil snapping through her body. Dust sprayed off the ridge. Then came the wait. Every man held his breath. The commander's binoculars trembled. Down in the valley, the convoy leader still stood. Then, like a puppet with cut strings, he dropped. One bullet. One impossible strike. Silence broke. Spotters gasped. Men shouted in disbelief. She remained still, cheek pressed to stock, eyes unmoving, as if she had known the outcome the moment she pulled the trigger. Vehicles revved, formation unraveled, chaos erupted. One bullet had scattered an entire command structure. The commander confirmed through binoculars, whispering, "He's down. He's down." Spotters erupted, disbelief turning to cheers. She had done it. The impossible became fact. She eased the weapon down, brushed dust from the scope, calm as stone. "You rewrote the rule book," the commander said, awe in his voice. "Someone had to," she replied simply. "No glory, no celebration, just necessity. One chance, one bullet, one mission." The team buzzed, replaying the moment, marveling at the math. She didn't join in, dismantling her rifle methodically. The commander barked, "Pack up. We move before they figure out where we are." The unit obeyed, eyes flicking to her as if seeing her for the first time. A young spotter hesitated. "How did you know it would hit?" "I didn't," she admitted. "But I trusted the math. And I trusted myself." The ridge faded behind them, the sun bleeding into the horizon. The commander murmured, "One bullet changed everything." He meant more than the convoy, he meant her. The sniper who proved limits are just lines waiting to be crossed. One shot echoed beyond the valley that day. Not just a bullet that dropped an enemy commander, but a statement shattering doubt, silence, and perceived limits. When courage meets precision, when discipline meets unshakable belief, even the impossible can fall in a single breath. One person willing to try when the world says it cannot be done.